Sometimes being successful in a service-based industry is as simple as making sure that your schedule and hours of operation are actually convenient for your target clients. Hey folks, welcome back to Marshall Business Matters. I'm Paul. Thanks for watching. And today we're discussing how and why to set a schedule for your classes in your martial arts school or club. Stay tuned to find out the do's and don'ts, the upswings and pitfalls of scheduling for your school. Okay, so we're talking about setting your schedule of classes in your martial arts school or club. Now, I want to begin with the caveat that it is a well understood industry reality that 90+% of martial arts schools in the country are mom and pop operations that are operated as second ventures for the owners or managers. And when I say second ventures, I mean the owners or managers of 90+% of the martial arts schools in this country are running their schools as a second job. They have a full-time 9-to-5 job and they run a martial arts school in the evening, or they run a club program out of a community center in the evening as a way to either supplement their income, build for success. They're trying to get something going that could eventually turn into a full-time gig. I understand that. That's an industry reality. 90+% of the schools in this country are second ventures for the owners. So I'm going to be speaking on this subject with those individuals in mind. It's the vast majority of martial arts schools and clubs out there. They're part-time operations. My school's a full-time school, so my schedule is going to look a little bit different, but I'm going to talk about the swings and the pitfalls of how we can set up a schedule and what you should or probably shouldn't be doing in terms of your schedule. I'm going to reflect on a video that I posted previously about target audience. In fact, I mentioned that in the introduction for this video, your target clientele. Who is your target clientele? Well, if you go back and watch that other video, you'll realize that your target clientele is moms between the ages of, say, their mid to late 20s all the way up to their early 40s. That's the target clientele, because the average student in the martial arts industry is a child between the ages of 7 and 12. So you do a little bit of math, you realize that your target client is a mom somewhere between mid to late 20s to early 40s. And so when we think about setting up a schedule, we want to think about what's convenient, not for kids, but what's convenient for adults. And that's an important component of the puzzle, because if we only think about what's convenient for kids, then we're missing out on who's actually getting them to the classes, right? So without further ado, we're going into it a little bit. The first common mistake that I see a lot of schools making with their schedule is adhering too closely or too rigidly to the local school system schedules, right? So one of the tried and true methods of ensuring that your classes are convenient for your average martial arts student is scheduling them for a time in the late afternoon or early evening when you know that the kids have going to be dismissed from school, right? So if you take a look at my local area, the junior high down the road, it's literally down the road, they let out classes at 3:45 p.m. So on the one hand, I could say, oh, well, if they let out classes at 3:45, then I should run classes at 4 o'clock, and that'll give the kids from the junior high plenty of time to get over here and get to class. Yeah, but who's going to get them here? Right? Many of them take the bus back home, or many of them are enrolled in after-school programs because their parents, mom, dad, grandma, grandpa, aunt, uncle, are working until 5. You know, a lot of people work a 9-to-5 job or an 8:30 to 4:30 job, and so they're not even, so the school may technically let out at 3:45, but a lot of those kids aren't actually leaving the school grounds until closer to 5. And so if I stick too rigidly to the school schedule and say, oh, classes let out or classes dismissed at 3:45, that means I should start running classes at 4, then I'm actually missing my target client. I'm hitting my target student because they're quote unquote free at 4 o'clock, but my target client, the person who's actually going to get them to class, isn't. And so that's a big mistake that I see a lot of schools making. Another mistake that I see a lot of schools making is not enough variability in the schedule. Think about Yeah, the type of martial arts students. If you're a traditional, I don't know, Taekwondo or karate school, or even a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu school or something like that, and you have different variability of skill levels and expertise within the ranks of your student population, whether they're kids or adults, it makes sense to offer something for those varied skill levels and levels of expertise. If every class that you run is just a basic martial arts class, then you're going to be missing the mark on a lot of your more intermediate and advanced students. Similarly, if you are running classes more attuned to the needs of intermediate and advanced students, then you're missing the mark on opportunities to bring a lot of newer students into your school or club, or you are bringing them into your school or club, they're getting burnt out or they're getting overwhelmed, and then they're quickly falling away. And so you want to make sure that when you're building your martial arts schedule, that you're building it in such a way that you are hitting the needs of the many first, because the needs of the many always outweigh the needs of the few. It's business, not friendship. And so, like, say if you've got 80% of your student population is a bunch of white belts, and then you've got the other 20% of your student population is everything above white belt, then it makes more sense to have a bunch of white belt classes and beginner classes, and maybe only a few of the intermediate and advanced classes. But if you've got a traditional pyramid structure in your rank structure, then you want to make sure that you're scheduling in such a way that you are providing for all of the different skill levels. So I see a lot of school and club making that mistake as well, where they are not intelligently analyzing their student population's needs and creating a schedule that actually meets those needs. And then another mistake that I see, a very common mistake that I see in school owners' schedules, is too much variability, too much chaos, right? So you can look at some schools' schedules and say, okay, well, Mondays at 4 o'clock, we've got white belt class, and then at 5 o'clock, we've got green belt class, and then at 6 o'clock, we've got weapons class, and then at 7 o'clock, we've got sparring class, and then on Tuesday, we've got advanced sparring, and then at 4 o'clock, and then at 5 o'clock, we've got a little kids class, and then at 6 o'clock, we have a senior citizens class. And their schedule is just like completely chaotic. There's no homogeny to the schedule whatsoever. And what they're doing in that case is they are taking an individual student at an individual point in time in their education and saying, out of all these classes we're running this week, this is the one that you can come to, or this is the one that you should come to. And what you're doing in that case is obviously you're hedging in individuals into a very, very limited scope of opportunity. Your schedule might be full of different classes. You might have a ton of different things going on, but you are meeting an individual only at a very particular place and saying, based on where you are and what you're studying and what you're training and what your expertise level is, this is the class that you can come to or should come to each week. And if you do that, obviously, you're not giving your students any opportunity. You're not being flexible with them at all. You might look flexible on paper, but in reality, you're not. So those are the three biggies. Those are the three big mistakes that I see a lot of schools making with their schedules. I want to talk a little bit about some of the good choices that you should be making with your schedules. Number one, what days should you be offering classes? The short answer to this question is as many days as you possibly can. Remember, variability and flexibility is an open door. The more flexible your schedule is, the more opportunities to come to classes people have, then the more students you can acquire, the wider your net, in other words. Now, for those of you who are operating out of, say, a rec center, a community center, a YMCA, something like that, maybe your contract with the YMCA only allows you to have classes 2 days a week. And maybe you've got that rec room from like 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And if that's your situation, and you do the best you can. But if you're renting a little space in a shopping center and it's your space and you can host classes whenever you want to, then the short answer to what days you should hold classes is as many days out of the week as you possibly can. Because again, the more opportunities you give to new students, then the more attractive your program is to potential new students. The more people are going to look at your schedule and be like, oh, well, that's pretty convenient, that's pretty convenient. If you're hedging people in, you're shutting doors on prospects and leads, and that's not good for growing your business. Then we talked a little bit about times. I want to kind of briefly touch on that a little bit more in terms of positive things you can do in terms of time frames. One of the things that I strongly encourage and recommend is an A-B schedule of some sort. So let's say you've got 5 days in a week, you're operating out of a little shopping center and you've got a space and you can run classes Monday through Friday. Well, so you've got Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. You don't want the schedule to look the same every day, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. You don't want to say, well, every day of the week at 4 o'clock is this class, every day of the week at 5 o'clock is this class, every day of the week at 6 o'clock is this class, because it's kind of the same thing as saying, well, we only have classes on Tuesdays and Thursdays, just in a different way. Because what you're doing is you're hitting the people who say, oh yeah, that 5 o'clock class is really convenient. But for those of your leads who can't make the 5 o'clock class and could only make a 6 o'clock class, well, if your beginner's class is at 5 o'clock and your intermediate and advanced class is at 6 o'clock every day of the week, then you're never going to get a single new student who can't make it to a 5 o'clock class. So what you want to do instead is create some sort of split. You want to create an A-B schedule where, for example, on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, we're going to run beginner's class at 5 o'clock. But on Tuesdays and Thursdays, we're going to run beginner's class at 6 o'clock. And on Wednesdays, we're even going to run a beginner's class at 7 o'clock. And what you do in that type of scheduling environment is that, again, you're opening doors, you're making things look more flexible because they are more flexible. You're making things more flexible for your potential new students and for your existing students, because little Johnny, little Timmy wants to come to class. Dad or mom is getting held up at work. They're a little bit late getting off. Or there was some sort of after-school function. Do you want it to be that little Timmy is missing his class altogether that day, or do you want it to be that little Timmy is coming to the 6 o'clock instead of the 5 o'clock? So you want to make sure that you're maintaining flexibility, not rigidity. And then why? Well, I've been touching on that the entire video. The reason scheduling is so important, and the reason that you actually want to be mindful and thinking about how you're scheduling classes, and when I say that, by the way, I don't mean what's convenient for you. I couldn't give less of a care what's convenient for you. And frankly, you shouldn't be thinking about what's convenient for you. You're trying to run a business, you're trying to grow something, you got to put yourself on the back burner a little bit and realize that that's only going to happen if you start thinking about the needs of your clients rather than the needs of yourself. And so when we think about what's convenient, we're always talking about what's convenient for the clients. Some quick tips. Number one, figure out what time local schools are letting their students off campus. A lot of schools do it in the mid-afternoon, 3:30, 3:45, 4 o'clock. Then think about when parents are actually getting off of work and what transit times are. A quick little device that you can use is to realize that by and large, the vast majority of individuals will not travel outside of a 3-mile radius from their point of entry, from their home base. Most people will not travel outside of 3 miles from their home base to do something like karate, dance, cheer, gymnastics. They just won't. And so think about drive times, think about major intersections, think about crossroads and ways to get from within this 3-mile radius to your school, to your location, and build out from there. So if you think that most of the parents are getting off at 5 o'clock and it takes them, let's say, based on average drive times, 15 minutes to get home, and then it takes them 10 minutes to get from home to your school, then running that class any earlier than 5:30 doesn't make any sense. Right? Similarly, if you run that class at 7, well, you've created too much space between the time when mom or dad gets home and could get the kid to class, because now we're talking about, well, 7 o'clock, that's dinner time. And then after dinner, it's, shower, get ready for bed, maybe do a little bit of homework. You've got to kind of hit this golden hour between, say, 5 and 7 p.m. That should be the bread and butter. But you can stagger 15 minutes this way, 15 minutes that way. You could run an earlier class. You just have to be mindful of what drive times look like in your area, what the demographics look like in your area, where the local schools are, and what time they're getting off the campus. Okay, so keep those things in mind. And again, why? Because if you're not thinking about what's convenient for your client and you're only thinking about yourself, then you're building a schedule for you. You're not building a schedule for growth. And of course, that's what this channel is all about. It's about growth and figuring out how to grow a program, how to grow a school. And so I can't reiterate enough. You've got to start thinking about the little things and realizing that your convenience often needs to be put on the back burner. Make sure that you're thinking about what's convenient for your clients and schedule yourself appropriately and accordingly. So there you go. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned for more. Don't forget to like, subscribe, ring the little bell so that you don't miss future updates. And remember, you watch Marshall Business Matters because Marshall Business matters. Take care.